She demanded an open relationship, then cried when I was the only one who got dates, so I left her. Now she's watching me propose to a woman who never needed options. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The garlic sizzled as it hit the hot oil, the scent filling our small kitchen. It was a Thursday, my favorite night. From the living room, I could hear the familiar theme song of the trashy reality show Qley loved, the one we always mocked together. I plated the pasta, a carbonara, her favorite. This was the rhythm of our life after 5 years. It wasn't explosive or dramatic. It was a comfortable, warm hum. I thought it was everything. I carried the plates into the living room. Qley was on the couch, but she wasn't watching the TV. Her phone was in her hand, her thumb scrolling with a restless, jerky motion. The blue light lit her face, highlighting a frown. "Dinner's up?" I said, setting her plate on the coffee table. She didn't look up. "MHM." I sat beside her, nudging her knee with mine. "What's up? Did another influencer find themselves in Bali?" It was our usual joke, but she didn't smile. She just sighed, a long, weary sound that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "Don't you ever feel like we're missing out, Mark?" I paused, a forkful of pasta halfway to my mouth. Missing out on what? Fake enlightenment and overpriced smoothie bowls. "On life," she said, finally turning to me. Her eyes were sharp, searching. "Look at Jessica and Ben. They just got back from a spontaneous weekend in Mexico. And look at Sarah and Mike. They're always at some new gallery opening or some underground concert." I gestured with my fork around our living room. The bookshelf we'd built together, the framed photo of us hiking in Colorado, the comfortable, slightly worn sofa. "We have a life, Qley. A good one. We went to the farmer's market on Sunday. We're planning a trip to Oregon this summer." "That's just it," she said, putting her phone down with a snap. "It's all so planned. So safe. Don't you want more than just this?" A cold trickle of unease started in my chest. "I like this. I like our life. I love you. I love you too, Mark." "I do." She said it like she was trying to convince herself. "But love shouldn't be a cage. We're so young. Don't you think we owe it to ourselves to explore?" And there it was. The word hung in the air between us, sucking the warmth out of the room. Explore. I put my fork down, my appetite gone. "What are you saying, Qley?" She took a deep breath, her gaze intense. "I've been doing a lot of reading, listening to podcasts. All the progressive, modern couples are doing it. I think we should try an open relationship." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. The comfortable hum of our life shattered into a deafening silence. I could only stare at her, my mind scrambling to catch up. "An open relationship?" I finally managed, my voice dangerously calm. "It's not that I don't love you," she rushed to say, her words a rehearsed script. "It's the opposite. It's about trust and freedom. We'd have new experiences, meet new people, and then we'd come back to each other with new perspectives. It would make us stronger. It's like an upgrade to our relationship, not a breakup." I felt a part of me, the part that believed in us, retreat behind a wall of ice. I looked at this woman, the woman I'd planned a future with, whose family I spent holidays with, whose nightmares I'd soothed, and saw a stranger. "So, you've already decided this is what you want?" I asked, my tone flat, devoid of the panic she probably expected. "It's what would be healthiest for us," she said, sidestepping the question. "And if I say no?" I asked, locking eyes with her. "If I say the idea of you with someone else makes me sick, and that I don't want that for us?" Her face hardened slightly. The manipulative card was coming. I could see it in the set of her jaw. "Then I guess you don't trust me," she said, her voice cool. "And if you don't trust me, Mark, that's a way bigger problem than us wanting to experience a little more of the world." There it was, the masterstroke. She had reframed her dissatisfaction as my failing. My desire for monogamy was now a sign of my insecurity, my lack of trust. In that moment, I didn't see the woman I loved. I saw a stranger who viewed my devotion as a chain, and our life together as a practice round for something better. The cold part of me, the part that had just been born, took over. Arguing was pointless. Begging was beneath me. She had already checked out. I looked at the 2 plates of congealing pasta on the table. Our comfortable Thursday night was a corpse. "Okay," I said, my voice quiet and final. Her eyes widened. "Okay, what?" "Okay, we can try your open relationship," I said, standing up. I picked up my plate and walked to the kitchen. I scraped the entire meal into the trash, the gesture feeling more symbolic than any words I could have shouted. I had agreed. But as I stood there, listening to the stunned silence from the living room, I knew it was not an agreement to build something new. It was an agreement to demolish what was left. And I was suddenly, terrifyingly curious to see how the grand experiment would play out. The following week was a study in surreal discomfort. Our home, once a sanctuary, became a transactional space. We were two roommates playing a twisted game with rules only one of us had read. Qley dove in headfirst. She spent hours curating her dating profile photos, pictures I had taken of her on our trip to California. Her laugh genuine, because it was for me. Now, they were bait for strangers. Her bio was a masterpiece of contradiction. Spontaneous adventurer with a deep soul, looking for meaningful connections and unforgettable experiences. She said meaningful connections, but I knew she meant exciting distractions. I, on the other hand, approached it with the grim determination of a man completing a tax return. My profile was brutally honest. Committed partner in an open relationship. Enjoy quiet dinners, good books, and honest conversation. I was the anti-Qley. Where she promised fireworks, I promised a steady flame. I didn't expect much. The results were immediate and utterly ironic. Her inbox, a desert disguised as an oasis. She got matches, sure, but they were a parade of the very men she claimed to be escaping. There was Adventure Bro 87, whose entire personality was rock climbing and who asked for her astrological sign within 3 messages. Finance Max, who sent an unsolicited shirtless gym selfie and demanded to know her body count. She went on a date with a guy who spent the entire time talking about his crypto portfolio and then expected her to split the bill for the overpriced cocktails he'd insisted on ordering. She'd come home, her energy deflated, the scent of some other man's cheap cologne clinging to her jacket. My inbox, a slow but steady stream of genuine curiosity. Women who were intrigued by my honesty, who were tired of the games. My first date was with a librarian named Sarah. We met for coffee. It was easy. We talked about our favorite authors, our mutual dislike of loud bars, and the simple joy of a well-made cup of coffee. There was no pressure, no performative masculinity. When we parted, she smiled and said, "This was really nice. You're refreshingly normal." The contrast was a poison dripping slowly into Qley's confidence. I came home from that date with Sarah to find the living room lights off. A single lamp cast long shadows, illuminating Qley sitting on the floor, her back against the sofa. An empty wine glass sat beside her, and a bottle was half gone on the table. She'd been crying. "Where have you been?" Her voice was a ragged tear in the quiet room. "I was on a date," I said, my tone neutral as I hung my jacket by the door. I didn't offer more. She let out a wet, bitter laugh. "A date? With the librarian? How was it? Did you have a thrilling time comparing book reports?" "It was pleasant," I said, walking to the kitchen to get a glass of water. I could feel her glare burning into my back. "Pleasant," she sneered, stumbling to her feet. "Do you have any idea what it's like out there? The men are all pigs. They just want one thing. They don't want to know you. They don't want to connect. They just want to conquer." I took a slow sip of water, leaning against the counter. The cold part of me observed her dispassionately. This was the grand adventure she'd craved. "How is it so easy for you?" she demanded, her voice rising into a wail. "How are you, Mr. Boring and Predictable, getting these pleasant dates? And I'm getting men who ask me if I'm submissive before they even ask my last name." I looked at her, at the mascara streaking her cheeks, at the genuine, self-pitying anguish on her face. There was no apology here, only a sense of unfairness that the world wasn't adhering to the fantasy she'd sold herself. I set my glass down on the counter with a soft, definitive click. "Qley," I said, my voice calm and level, cutting through her hysterics. "You wanted an open relationship. We have an open relationship." She stared at me, her mouth slightly agape. "You don't get to set the rules," I continued, "and then cry when you're losing the game you insisted on playing." The words hung in the air, stark and undeniable. They weren't cruel, just true. They exposed the hypocrisy at the core of her entire argument. She hadn't wanted freedom, she'd wanted validation. She hadn't wanted to explore, she'd wanted to be adored by many, while keeping me as her safe harbor. She had wanted to have her cake and eat it too, but she never stopped to consider that I might not be a piece of cake anymore. I was the baker, and I just opened my own shop. I walked past her, the scent of wine and despair clinging to her, and went to our bedroom. Our bedroom. The word felt foreign now. As I closed the door, I heard a fresh wave of sobs from the living room. This time, I felt nothing. The cold part of me had taken root, and it was nourished by the sheer, poetic justice of it all. The cage she felt trapped in had always been of her own design, and now, for the first time, I was the one who held the key. And I was already turning the lock. The silence in the apartment over the next week was heavier than any argument. Qley moved through the rooms like a ghost, alternating between sullen resentment and desperate attempts to regain control. She tried to flirt, to remind me of what we had, but it felt like a bad performance. The script was outdated, and I was no longer in the audience. I spent my evenings packing, not frantically, but methodically. I started with my books, then my clothes, then the few pieces of furniture that were truly mine. I found a modern, furnished apartment downtown and signed the lease online. I was detaching, cell by cell, from the life we'd built. A week after her crying fit, I came home from a final, decisive date with Sarah. We'd agreed to stop seeing other people and focus on each other. The irony was so thick you could taste it. Qley was waiting for me, perched on the arm of the sofa, her arms crossed. The few boxes I had left were by the door. "We need to talk," she said, her voice trying for strength but landing on brittle. "I agree," I said, not stopping as I walked to the bedroom to get my last suitcase. She followed me. "Mark, this has gone too far. We need to close this. Now, I'm calling it off." I zipped up the suitcase and turned to face her. Her expression was a mix of fear and imperious demand. She expected me to be relieved. "Qley," I said, my voice firm and final. "This experiment is over. And so are we." The color drained from her face. "What? No. We can fix this. We close the relationship. We go to counseling. There's nothing to fix." I interrupted, my tone calm but absolute. "You broke what we had. This wasn't an upgrade to our relationship. It was a demolition. And I'm not interested in rebuilding on a foundation of disrespect and manipulation." "Manipulation?" she spat, the fear turning to fury. "I was trying to save us. You're the one who went out and found a replacement before the body was even cold. You didn't even fight for me." I picked up my suitcase and walked past her into the living room. I looked at the empty spaces on the bookshelf where my books used to be. This was no longer my home. "You didn't want to be fought for, Qley," I said, my hand on the doorknob. I looked back at her, standing alone in the middle of the room she had found so suffocating. "You wanted to be set free. Consider yourself free." I closed the door on her stunned silence. I didn't hear a sob or a scream, just the quiet, final click of a chapter ending. I didn't block her number immediately. I let the digital unraveling play out. It was a testament to the person I had been and the person she truly was. Her texts, "Day 1, please come back. I'll do anything. I made a huge mistake. I love you. Day 3, you've ruined my life. How could you be so cold? After everything we had. Day 5, I'm telling everyone the truth. That you were emotionally abusive and you forced the open relationship on me to cheat guilt-free. You're a monster." The last one was the final piece of the puzzle. The true colors, emerging in vibrant, ugly hues. There was no remorse, only blame shifting. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry her plan had failed. I opened my photos, found the screenshot I'd taken weeks ago, her text demanding the open relationship. I then screenshotted her latest message, the one accusing me of abuse. I composed a new message to her, attached both images, and wrote only 2 words. "This is why." I hit send. Then, I blocked her number. The silence that followed was the most peaceful I had ever known. 2 years is a long time. It's long enough to build a new life, one that feels more authentic than the old one ever did. My life with Sarah was not a performance. It was a partnership. We bought a small house with a garden. We got a dog. Our arguments were about what color to paint the kitchen, not the fundamental nature of our commitment. With her, I never had to question my value. I was never an option. I was the choice. The idea for the proposal came to me on a random Tuesday. It wasn't a grand, dramatic plan. It was a quiet certainty. I knew the spot, the hill in Crestwood Park where we'd had our first picnic. It overlooked the city, and the sunsets there were painted in watercolor hues. It was also, ironically, a place Qley and I had gone a few times. I was reclaiming it, washing the old memories away with a new, better one. I didn't know Qley was there. Fate, or perhaps poetic justice, has a wicked sense of timing. I'd arranged for Sarah's best friend to bring her to the park on a pretext. As they walked up the path, I stood waiting, the small velvet box a comforting weight in my pocket. The sunset was perfect, streaking the sky with orange and purple. Sarah saw me and her face broke into a confused, beautiful smile. "Mark, what are you doing here?" I didn't answer with words. I got down on one knee. I said the things you're supposed to say, but I meant every one of them. The world narrowed to her face, to the tears welling in her eyes, to the way her hand flew to her mouth. "Sarah," I said, my voice clear and steady, "you are my peace. You are my home. Will you marry me?" Her yes was a joyful sob that echoed in the quiet evening. I slipped the ring on her finger, stood up, and pulled her into an embrace that felt like a new beginning. A smattering of applause came from a few strangers who had gathered to watch. And then, as I held my fiancée, my eyes lifted over her shoulder. Across the lawn, maybe 50 feet away, stood Qley. She was with a friend I vaguely recognized. They were frozen. Her friend was pointing, a look of horrified recognition on her face. But Qley was just staring. Her face was a blank canvas of shock that was slowly being painted over with a dawning, gut-wrenching agony. She was watching the future she threw away unfold in front of her, with a woman who embodied everything she had pretended to be: secure, kind, and whole without the need for external validation. Our eyes met for a second, maybe two. There was no anger in me, no smugness, no pity. There was nothing. She was a relic, a ghost from a past life. I felt a profound and absolute indifference. I gave a faint, polite nod, the kind you'd give a vaguely familiar acquaintance you pass on the street. Then I turned my entire attention back to the woman in my arms, to my future, to my yes. I kissed Sarah, deeply, forgetting the ghost in the distance entirely. I saw her then, not as the woman who broke me, but as a lesson I had long since learned. She was a footnote in my story, while I had become the happy ending she thought she never needed. As I held Sarah, the woman who never needed options, I felt nothing for the ghost in the distance. And in that nothing, I found everything. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.